Now that you understand the key specs for lenses, focal lengths, and f-stops, it's time to talk about zooms and primes. Zoom lenses, or just zooms, as I'm sure you can guess, are lenses that have a range of focal lengths, allowing you to zoom in and out going between various focal lengths. These lenses are typically larger and heavier, and at best open up to around f2.8. The more economical zooms will be f4 or f3.5 through 5.6. Their quality can be very good, but typically not as good as primes. More economical zooms will have worse quality than more economical primes typically. Most common zoom lengths, at a pro level at least, are 16 to 35mm, 24 to 70mm, 24 to 105mm, and 70 to 200. That being said, there are many combinations of zoom lengths, and you can't measure quality based off of the zoom range. Zooms are great because they give you plenty of options when it comes to composition, standing from one spot. This is especially great for travel photographers and when out and about with your camera, not knowing exactly what you'll be shooting. Primes, or fixed focal length lenses, are lenses that are just one focal length. A 50mm prime or a 35mm prime are just that, a 50mm lens or a 35mm lens. These lenses come in a wide range of sizes, and while they are typically more compact, lighter, and faster than zooms, some are as heavy and big as other zoom lenses. And although it might seem like a zoom would be the better option since you get multiple focal lengths, prime lenses are preferred by many professional photographers, typically offering better image quality, bokeh, and overall performance. I've used both primes and zooms extensively, and while I love the ease of zoom lenses, especially when traveling, the quality of primes is my favorite, and oftentimes I find that I would rather just walk closer or farther from my subject to get the shot than just zooming in or out. Also, you can find relatively cheap prime lenses that have amazing quality. Either way though, finding the right lens for yourself is tricky and takes time. I started with my 18 to 200mm Nikon lens, practiced my photography, and over the years figured out what lenses I enjoyed using most. My 35 f1.2 is my go-to, but for a long time my 24 to 70 was all that I used. Now when it comes to building your own kit, money does play a big role in this, because lenses aren't cheap. One thing I want to note is that while cameras are important, you can always upgrade your camera body later on. But ideally, you can keep using the same lenses regardless of what camera you get. This is why people typically become loyal to only shooting with Canon or Nikon, Sony or Fuji. It's because even as they upgrade their cameras, they are able to keep using the same lenses. You can buy adapters that allow you to put a Canon lens on a Sony camera, for example, but I find that extra piece of equipment is typically pretty cumbersome, and the adapters greatly slow down your autofocus and take away from any weather sealing you might have. So assuming you have a camera in mind, what lens do you get? I would say a zoom with a big range is a good place to start, and typically, the most economical will be the kit lens, which the manufacturer will offer at a good price with the camera. As you progress as a photographer though, you will outgrow this lens and realize that there is much better quality out there. Getting a wide-angle lens and something that is more telephoto is usually the next step. You want to be able to cover a range of focal lengths with your kit. So if your kit lens is an 18 to 55mm, you might want a telephoto lens that is something like a 70 to 200. You might also want a wide angle that's somewhere around 10 to 24. But just because you have a zoom that covers a particular focal length doesn't mean you shouldn't think about getting a prime lens as well. For example, the 50mm is a great prime lens to start out with for any photographer. From there, it depends on what kind of photography you want to do. If you're able to, one of the best things I can recommend is to rent lenses, test them out, see if it's worth your money for the actual purchase. If you want a decent all-around workhorse, you can't go wrong with the 24-70 f2.8 or 24-105. I've used both these lenses in all sorts of scenarios. If you are passionate about portraits, I would highly recommend getting a prime lens somewhere between 50mm to 135mm. If you are traveling, a zoom lens might be the most practical because you can just bring that one lens. That being said, I have found that while traveling, a discrete prime lens, like my 35mm to be specific, gets some of the best images because it is smaller and people don't seem to be as bothered by it. It's also f1.2, which allows me to get great images in low light, which my zoom couldn't. Plus, it's easier to pack and carry around. For landscapes, you'll definitely want a wide-angle lens to capture large, wide-open landscapes. But I personally love more telephoto lenses for landscape photography to get those detail shots as well. For street photography, undoubtedly, a compact prime lens is the way to go, but focal length is dependent on your style. Do you want to get up close and personal? A wide-angle lens is better for that. But if you want to stay farther away, a telephoto lens is best. For nature photography, you might realize you want an even more telephoto lens, more than 300 or 400 millimeters, to get that right shot of the bird or animal far, far off in the distance. As you can see, there are a lot of decisions to make when it comes to building your lens kit. Start slowly, experiment, see what types of photography you like, and go from there. If you have specific questions about lenses, we're here to help. Post questions to the course or drop us a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.